Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quiet Power, the space where we have honest, healing conversations about life, growth, and the strength that doesn't always have a voice, but it is always present. I am your host, Cherie, and I am so glad you are here. Today's conversation is one that so many are carrying, even if they don't always have the words for it. We're talking about grief, not just loss through death, but the quieter, less visible forms of grief that show up every day in everyday's life. And at the center of this conversation is quiet resilience, the strength it takes to keep going, to feel deeply, and to heal, even when no one else can see what you're carrying. I am honored to be joined by Dr. Shanelle Fields, and I thank you for being here on Quiet Power.
Sure.
So I have to let you guys know the bio of this woman. So I have to read this, of course. So Dr. Shanelle Fields is a licensed professional counselor based in Summerville, South Carolina. She is the owner of Taking the First Step Counseling and Educational Services and Fields of Dreams Fields of Dreams Consulting. She works with clients in the areas of anxiety, life transitions, depression, grief, identity shifts, and relationship counseling. As a transformational speaker, she is known for bringing authentic dialogue and positive mental health awareness into every space she enters. Dr. Fields is deeply committed to impact. As a community leader, she continuously advocates for others to prioritize their well-being and take intentional steps toward healing. She is also the author of 3 books, using her voice and experience to inspire growth and reflection. Above all, her most important role is being a mom to her 6-foot football player son, who keeps life full, active, and always entertaining. Welcome, Dr. Fields.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us. So we're going to talk about those books later. We're going to dig deep into that.
Okay.
Well, let's get started with the first question, because it's a hot topic. And a lot of people, deal with grief, but they have grief in different ways, not only death. It can be a loss of a friend, loss of a pet. It could be, friendships, leaving a job.
Yes.
Grief can come in different ways. So we'll start off by saying, what was quiet resilience and what does it mean to you in the context of grief?
Well, I'll first start with resilience. Generally, we coin this term to mean someone who is a fighter, someone who was a survivor, who has experienced something maybe traumatic or difficult and has found their way to the other side or is fighting through the storm to get to the other side. Quiet, of course, refers to the fact that it's not out loud healing or it's not a loud and clamoring fight. It is deeply intentional and personal and something that is at the person's own pace, maybe not agreeable to others, but what works for that person, which I feel like is a necessary part of healing. Your journey is yours specifically. So how you do that and how you make it to the other side is very intentional and purposeful, as well as individual. I feel like it is hard to grieve with resilience because who doesn't want support?
Right.
Who doesn't want someone to be there with them and for them? But unfortunately, many people do not have that support or that listening ear. So
I hate to stop you, but I also feel as if people don't know what to say when it
Yes.
comes to that.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
they don't know the right words that are comforting,
Yes.
to the person.
Yes, absolutely. Even any kind of grieving, there is such thing as grief etiquette. People do not know how to talk to others when they're going through a loss. They mean well, but it doesn't come out that way. It may seem that it's endearing, but to the person who's going through the pain, it might trigger memories or difficult feelings, lots of emotion, because unfortunately, they're going through. And so that makes your triggers a lot more noticeable and the reactions may come out. So this is also why some people choose to grieve in private with this quiet resilience, because the world often does not understand feelings and emotions, nor do sometimes they care.
Right. They figure you should just get over it and keep going.
Yes.
But like you said, it's not really a time on it, on the
No.
healing part.
No, not at all.
That's part of the etiquette, knowing when to not rush somebody through their healing process with grief.
Absolutely.
All right, next question. I think we already talked about it though, but when people hear the word grief, they often think of a loss through death. But what are some forms of grief people may not recognize?
Believe it or not, because this is one of the things I deal with a lot in therapy, we grieve sometimes our identity, the life we once thought we would have, or the life we did have, maybe a job caused you to change tax brackets. And so now you're not along with the Joneses. Maybe you live in a different zip code now because you lost your job, or now you're robbing Peter to pay Paul like the average person, and you can't afford the luxury things that you're used to. So you're grieving friends, situations, experiences. All of these things do cause grief. It is a life change. So that job that you've been on for 25 years, and when it's time for retirement, you want to go, but often people get depressed afterwards because their life has changed. I used to have purpose getting up every day to go be someplace at a certain time. But now I have any place to go, and I'm bored and I'm sitting down watching TV. That's why sometimes you see older people at Walmart greeting or working because it is habit. We are creatures of habit. So it gets boring sitting at home. We grieve relationships and people, not just in the fact that they leave this earth, but when friendships break up. Maybe you've been friends for 30 years, but you've outgrown that friend. And although it's something that's necessary, it's still a piece of you that has been pulled apart or separated. One thing I want to highlight about grief, the major thing that gets people is the break in routine. That thing, I called her every morning on the way to work. Whenever I had an issue, she answered the phone. She was my late night phone person. She was my ram in the bush, or he was always there. So now you might be isolated or feel alone. We grieve relationships, just the connections of. We grieve sometimes, like I said, persons that mean something to us. We definitely grieve jobs because believe it or not, all of those things are a part of our identity. Our friend circles, our things that we like to do and say. When we get into spaces where we have to be sheltered or a smaller version of ourselves, we grieve that because we don't get to show up fully and authentically. So there's lots of ways to grieve that's not just death of a loved one.
Not even a pet.
Yes.
People really take pets.
Yes,
really
they do.
To heart. I lost a pet. I lost 2 pets, and I didn't know that was sad until I saw dogs that looked just like them, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's definitely a trigger.
And you know how people are about their dogs.
I write a lot of emotional support animal letters, and when they lose this person, we definitely have to go through the grief process in therapy because that is a part of them. This is often their companion, their safe place. Pets give you unconditional love. And not having that affirming feeling can feel and make your life feel a little bit crazy and out of whack. Yeah, absolutely.
I can see that. All right. So for someone in the early stages of grief, it's important to approach healing gently. So what are some gentle, realistic steps, first steps for someone that they can take when they're in the early stages of grief?
Gentle steps are just, number one, the actualization and the realization that you've lost something, someone or something. The thing about grief is it kind of feels surreal in the beginning, as if you're living in a dream. Or sometimes you can characterize it as, hey, they went on vacation, or, they, ran away, but they're coming back. Or the dog ran down the street and he's coming back, or she's coming back. Or the job, I left, but they told me it'll be there for me when I'm ready to come back. And so there is that thought that it will always be there, especially relationships. And so first realizing that something has ended and accepting that. That is a gentle, believe it or not, start, because we can't start the healing process until we actually acknowledge that we're going through something or a traumatic experience has happened. Number 2, this is going to blow some people's minds, but emotional release, often and much, that can be in many different forms. That may mean yelling, dare I say cursing, screaming, isolation. Sometimes for other people, that means living in extremes. Those are on the other end. But it is allowing yourself to feel all of the hard parts. Being angry is one we don't like to talk about, but that's a big part of grief that we like to keep a secret about. But anger is a big part of losing something or someone.
So you brought up isolation. So in the last 6-7 years now, I have really been tested when it came to relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, I guess that's what you call it. So losing them, I didn't have like a sadness about it. It was more like, okay, like a step. Like I had to go through it to build character. So it wasn't like I didn't feel like a painful, it was more like a release. So is that another form of the process? Yeah.
So, in the stages of grieving, acceptance is that last one. But acceptance may not look the same for everyone. Sometimes that means that, I acknowledge that we interacted or we had a relationship or, we were even in a situationship. But my acceptance is that it's over. So I'm moving on. You may or may not be upset about it, but that is a part of grieving. Sometimes that just means, okay, well, that didn't work out and I'm okay with that. It doesn't always have to come with emotion, but that emotion could be just the fact that I accept it and I'm moving on. Especially if the relationship or the situationship or the interactions were not positive,
Right.
or they caused you stress. And it's like, sheesh, I'm happy that, it's over, or it gave me a headache more than I needed. And it just took you some time to get out of the fog to say, hey, it's time for me to go.
Woo! That subject right there, I can actually write a book on.
Yes.
I'm gonna leave that there.
Yes. People, definitely people. Okay.
Yes. Oh, goodness. All right. So healing doesn't really have to be rushed, like we said earlier. So, and our support systems can play a major role in the healing journey. So, what role does community or the lack of it play in the healing process?
Wonderful question. So, I have a couple different things I wanted to say about this. One of the things that we talk about a lot in the counseling world is community healing or community grief. When a person dies or there are multiple people that die in a certain community, the whole community grieves, each person. So, hey, we've been in this space before. Here in the Low Country, a lot of people die in North Charleston. And so it hits a lot of the same communities over and over and over again. So that community feeling that we're all sharing the same pain is supportive, often to the family and the other people connected to the person, who died. In regards to relationships, this is why we love girls' night, or we love hanging out with our guys or getting together with the guys, a guy's trip or a girl's trip, because we get to talk and build that camaraderie with people who've gone through the same thing. So I'm not out here by myself. I actually have people that I can talk to who've experienced this. Sometimes helping your friend just means, hey, I'm handing her or him the tissue and I'm letting them cry. I'm not trying to solve the problem. I'm just listening. And one of the things that I've learned to say is whenever we answer the phone, when somebody is asking, can you hold space for me? And if that means you ask them, hey, are you looking for a solution? Or do you just want me to listen?
That's important. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Because people don't think to do that.
Correct. We just jump in, especially our best girlfriends and best guy friends. We just launch into what's going on and we just dump. But we don't think about what he or she may be carrying. And so we just launch into what we have going on. So it's okay to say, hey, can you hold space for me? So community support is important. It really is. It makes you feel not alone. It also makes you feel that you are seen, valued, and heard, and that your hurt is not yours alone. On the flip side, though, community can also add to your frustration and your grief if they all have different opinions or views on things, or if The way you choose to grieve is not a proven or accepted way of dealing with things. There, you can sometimes say, hey, y'all just stay over there. I'm good. Let me separate myself from this. Because believe it or not, it adds to the grief. For example, I often say when we have people die and people come over to our house, they add to the grief because they've sat with you so long that you asking them, do they want something to drink? And, it's a soda.
How do people do that? They stay and they just stay all day.
And it's like, ask me to sweep the floor. Can you change the sheets on my bed? Do something. Wash the dishes instead of sitting there just looking at me. And I don't think we realize that now. We're already tired with grief, but now we got to serve. I never understood that. And I know people are coming to our homes, but why do we have to serve people?
I always felt like people that are going through grief really need people after all the festivities are over.
Yes.
Because when everybody's gone and you looking around, that's when you really need people.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I
don't get it. How people just sit there and just stay and just hang out all day.
Eat your food, look at you. Don't open the door. Just sit there when the doorbell rings. It can be. And then you're so exhausted by the end of the week when everything is done that all you can do sometimes is flap in the chair and just sigh because it's over. I got through everything, but it's so overwhelming because that week where the funeral and the viewing and all of that, that's very heavy and intense, and it goes by in a blur. Like you said, it's when the casket closes or when, the service is over is when everything starts to kind of rush in and the apps blur. So many things are going on. You're seeing people, they're greeting you, they're coming, you're trying to smile and say, thank you for coming. So you really don't have time to really absorb the impact of the missing person or the absent.
Or then you probably won't even remember who was there because it's all a blur, especially when it comes to funerals.
Yes.
You'll be like, hey, I saw you at the funeral. I'm so glad I was able to come. And you'd be like,
yes,
I don't even remember who was at the funeral.
Exactly.
So people don't see that part of it either.
Yeah, I agree. So it's all very heavy. And a lot of it I feel like is because we do traditions and norms. And sometimes those norms, they're important. My brother would kick me because he owns 2 funeral homes, but sometimes that pomp and circumstance is overrated.
Wow.
Yes.
So let's get into your books that you have.
Okay.
Do you have them handy? So we can see?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I got one. Let me see if I got the other two. Okay. I only got one with me right now. That's what I pulled.
You got your journal with you?
Yes.
The journal one? Okay,
yes,
good.
I do. I do.
Right. So go ahead and talk about that one first.
Okay. So we're talking about grief, and I actually wrote this book right after losing my mom in 2017. It was my first very, very, very close grief experience, and it changed my life. Not only just in the way because she wasn't here, but I experienced all of those hard things that we don't like to talk about that comes with the change in your life. Losing weight and not eating and going through all of the emotions and crying every day, having the unexpected waves that come when you're missing someone, the triggers. I celebrate Mother's Day now, but in a different way. I choose for me and my son to do something creative together because it's very hard for me to be in spaces where they have their moms around and I can't experience that. So I try not to put myself into the space where I get triggered or fall into depression. More recently, my father passed on January 31st. And so I'm also in the throes of grief now with that. And so I had just finished my grief journal before he got really sick and passed. And I knew that I needed to finish it, but I didn't know what was the reason. And so now I'm going through my own works as I process the grief that I have now. So the first book is called Grief Matters, and it is an anthology of 5 women who all experience grief in different ways and how it's affected and changed our lives. I would like to say it gives you the permission to grieve in the way that you see fit, in the way that soothes your soul. A lot of people like to say, hey, you should grieve this way, or like you said, it takes this long, but you could be 20 years into it and still have a moment, something that hits you very hard. Anniversary, death dates, birthdays, holidays often trigger loud responses of emotion because it's almost like you relive the moment the person passed again. So you're mindful of those things. So it's an easy read, but it's conversational. It's like you're talking to your friend at the kitchen table. And so it could be found on Amazon and Walmart and Barnes and Noble for this book. And it's called Grief Matters. And here are our authors here also. So this was my first, how can I say, entrance into grief. And the funny thing is, I did not like to deal with grief. And like I said, my family owns 2 funeral homes. And so when people would ask me, do you work at the funeral home? I would say, no, I work with the living. And so I was like, absolutely not. And so after losing my mom, and she worked in the funeral home, she was in the first one, she was the vice president. Believe it or not, after I got myself together, I began to work at the funeral home here. So I work as a lady attendant as well as the grief counselor for the funeral home. So I've gotten all up in it now. And so after, experiencing that, I put this together. It's called the Griever Support Kit. Here is a quick little pamphlet that I put together called Self-Care for Grievers. And it just talks about ways that you can support yourself or things you can do as you are grieving. Very simple read. It's an explanation of what grief looks like. I talk about the waves of grief. And sometimes they hit you, you just shed a tear or two. Sometimes they hit you at your knees and you have to regroup and get yourself together. And then sometimes it's one of those big waves that wash over you and you can't get out of bed in the morning and you're sad and depressed the whole day. The thing about it is, guess what? It's so unpredictable. You don't know when it's coming. Right. And so that's what makes grief. Yes, that's what makes grief hard. And so the third thing is this called the Grievers Reflection Journal. And I just finished this, and it gives you some things to think about. It gives you, if your grief could talk, what would it say? Getting you to it's kind of a guide for how you feel. What part of your body is heavy today? Right now, I'm missing certain things. And I like this one because where do I feel grief in my body? And so you shade the part because tension is in our shoulders. And sometimes grief looks like anxiety, which sits in our stomach. So it may be that I'm not eating or I'm not sleeping. Some days pain is at a 1, and then some days pain is at a 10. There is a space for memory and meaning where you can just write about, this is an optional section because some people are not ready to remember because it's too painful. So that is an optional section. It also talks about some ways to release and self-care. So these are just some things. I also ask you what songs help you get through the hard days. So what the lyrics remind me of or make me think of, this melody touches my soul because it lets me know that my person is all right. So even talking about the different emotions at the bottom, pain and joy, and just being in a place of calm. So it really is a daily walk with dealing with grief. And so what I call it a new normal. What happens when you dial that phone number and the person doesn't answer? And they will never answer again. So it is something that really requires intentional work. And I say that because grief is a marathon, not a sprint. I challenge you. This is something that I leave the readers with. I say that grief is a marathon and not a sprint. Cherish each day with gratitude, grace, and grit. The pain you feel lets you know the love was real and the connection was lived and not just felt. The journal was created to help you cope with the waves of grief, the heaviness of cloudy days, and the absence of the routine you once knew. If nothing else, I hope you were honest with yourself throughout the process. It is the only way to heal the right way. In closing, I hope the reflection gives you hope, heeding what your mind, body, and soul need. O, open to taking steps on the path to healing. P is piecing together moments that bring you joy. And E, embracing the day with gratitude, grace, and grit. So this is just something to kind of get your mind going. And sometimes we need some place to put all of our feelings. And so writing and journaling is something that really helps. So I kind of put together this little pack here so you can have some things to work through your grief with. So yeah.
Well, we'll put your link and stuff in our description so people can, see what you got. But I think that's the journal. I really, really like that. So you can just write out your thoughts and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
Absolutely. It is. So just, it's a process and it's individual. If you don't remember anything that I say from this podcast tonight, just know that grief is your journey and you have to ride those waves. You have to cry, you have to scream, yell until you're ready not to scream and yell. And ultimately remember that you are human. So emotions are a good thing and emotions help us get through those moments. So don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't cry or you shouldn't be angry. So it is individual for a reason, but you can get through it if you heal the right way.
I love that. Love that. I thank you for sharing that. And I know that's a topic that you're still dealing with. So, and I thank you for sharing it for other ones, others to be able to go through the process and not feel alone with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
No problem. All right. So thank you for sharing this space and your insight. Grief is not always visible and healing is not always loud, but both are deeply real. Quiet resilience is not about having it all together. It's about continuing, allowing, and giving yourself space to heal. What would you say to someone who feels like no one sees their pain? And to everyone listening, your grief is valid. Take your time, be gentle with yourself, and trust your healing process. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and trust the quiet strength within you. Thank you for joining us on Quiet Power. See you next week.